Hi, this is Cheryl back with you from Farmhouse Frugally with the month of April's What Would You Make? Now, I am going to take some wooden items and not do a lot to them. I am just going to tweak them this time around to show you how easy it can be to flip something very simple. Now, I had this little picture frame, kind of had a nice shadow box effect to it that I painted white a long time ago, stuck it back in my stash and never finished it. So I just pulled it out because I bought the IOD Lover of Flowers Spring 2024 transfers. I think these are so incredibly beautiful. And I knew that this chalk paint had been cured for months on end. Therefore, I would not have any issue laying a transfer down. If you are concerned, you should absolutely wait several days after chalk painting or put a clear coat on it before you lay down especially one with any kind of script, because the script can have a tendency to be harder to lay down than the florals. I simply chose one I thought would be pretty, and I laid it right in the center with the poem that came with it right on top. And just using the tool provided, I just went ahead and rubbed that down and pulled that up. Now, this one laid down really easily. Not always the case, but in this case, it really was easy. Then I just burnished that, and then I had these little knobs that I get for 10 cents at a local antique store, and I added a little bit of E6000 and a little bit of hot glue, and I kept them in the natural tones because I kept the bottom of this natural to make it easy to glue, and also I had kept part of the top edges natural also, so I liked the fact that these were still pretty much the same color and would go very well with this tray. So that is really all I had to do with this beside adding a little bit of wax. Now, if you are not a kind of person who likes the distressed look, the vintage feel of things, and you like it like this, you probably would want to either spray a poly coat on it or put some clear wax on it in order to just protect that, both the wood, the paint, and the transfer. But I do like distressing. I don't want to put a dark wax all by itself on this because that may change the color too much. So I am first just taking a little bit of Annie Sloan clear wax, which I, by the way, got free at my dump. Somebody had used like about a tablespoon of it and left it at the dump. So I was like, good for me. So now I am just putting that on with an angled wax brush. I am going to do that whole thing, and then I am going to take out my antique wax and I am going to add that. I like to pick up a little bit, especially around the edges, to make that look more vintage for the style of home that I have. And then use a rag to wipe that back. Any place I think is too dark, I just put a little bit more of the clear wax on top of. Then I should add some handles. So I was looking around to see what I had, and I had a belt in my stash, a leather belt. So I just took some, and he helped me to tack those in while I held that little piece of leather belt to the edge, kind of holding it up a little so that it looked like a handle. And I actually like, for lightweight things like this, I like to use that. But you can also use any furniture pulls that you have on hand. You could use rope, or you could use a knob. You can get creative if you have another item in your stash, but I thought that since I had just a little bit, probably just enough of this leather left to do these two pieces, this would be absolutely perfect. Love to know what you think about this, if you'd like to recreate something like this, and if you have the Lover of Flowers transfer. I think it was $28 or $30 for it, but you are going to get probably 15 projects. So I figure each project is about $2 if you use it by cutting each sheet in half. So it's definitely a good bargain. Now, I saw this incredibly adorable sheep hanging some kind of a hook picture. Had these holes in very strange places, and it had kind of a 70s, 80s sort of primitive country feel to the top of it, but the sheep were really well painted. It's 36 inches long. I removed the hooks, I cleaned it, and I decided to really distress it, taking the bulk of that vine and pip berries off. I filled all the holes with a wood filler and sanded those back, especially the ones above the sheep's head that were just kind of really strangely not even evenly placed. And I decided to just get that a real good cleaning. And I debated on whether I wanted to paint this and put something on top of it, but honestly, I really love the sheep. Now, before I go any further, let me remind you that this What Would You Make monthly collaboration is hosted by Connie and Brenda every month, and they have a guest host. And this month, the special guest host is Amy. So make sure you check out my description box for their channels, as well as the playlist for all the other creators joining in. Now the bulk of the shine has been taken down. I went into my stash to see. I absolutely couldn't believe that I had a green and a blue color in my stash that were already somewhat similar to the color tone in this picture. And I knew the shine wasn't going to be exact because it had sort of a polyurethane finish that I took most of that down, but not all of it. But I basically just sort of dry brushed first over the places that I had wood filled with a little of the blue and a little bit of the green color. And then I just added some longer streaks here and there to sort of make that look like it, these colors were part of the original picture. And then once that was completely dry, I knew that I was going to have to take out an antique wax to wax over this whole thing to give it more of that vintage vibe, and certainly to pick up the beautiful distressing on the edges of this piece. Now, this time I did not use a clear wax on the edges first, and I could have if I wanted this to be a very pale antique distressing around the edges, but I actually wanted it to be pretty full strength and to really kind of be dark around the edges. And I knew that I could always clear wax whatever part I thought was too dark, but I just sort of went with it and, did a little bit of distressing over the sheep themselves, real lightly, but the bulk of the distressing I did around the outside edges and covered that, and then wipe that back real quickly with a rag because I didn't want that to have an opportunity to sink in too much. I did have to cover the painted areas with more wax, so I ended up kind of giving that a little bit more of the dark wax than I wanted to, but I recognized that that chalk paint feel was different than the rest of the picture, and I had to, kind of marry those two a little bit more. And then I wiped that back with a rag, and then I decided that I wanted to put some of those hooks back on because as much as this is a beautiful picture, it is nice to have a functional thing. But they had they were 6 originally, 1 was missing, so I had 5, and I decided that that was probably a little overkill for this, so I just took out my measuring tape and I found center for the first one, and then I just ended up putting 2 more on toward the ends of this, just having 3, but I moved them further up. They were hanging way down originally, and I didn't want to cover the sheep, but I wanted them to be up a lot higher so that they didn't look quite so awkward. Straight, and then once those are on, the only screws I had are the screws that came with, and they were silver, so I just took my antiquing wax and I just went over them with that dark wax to make them match more. I had soaked, I forgot to mention, these hooks in vinegar and water to make them a lot less shiny, a little more vintage looking, and almost a little bit rusty, so they definitely had a more vintage feel to them than the original. Now I intend to sell this and not hang it in my home as much as I love it, so I am not going to put too large more holes in my walls. So I am just putting it on my couch here so that you can see. Oh, I did spray this with a couple coats of clear finish, and so you can see how that looks against a very neutral background. And again, I did not do a lot to this. I really just made it look more distressed and less 70s, 80s, and just a little bit more like it's not quite so primitive country, but could fit into a couple of different design styles. So let me know what you think, and if you think I should have just simply painted it and put a transfer on it, that would be fine too. And then that takes me on to this box, which was filthy. Oh my goodness, this was on the good table at the dump, some kind of a Pier 1 or a TJ Maxx type, and it was so dirty, but it had such good bones, and it's hard to find good wooden pieces. So I cleaned this really well first and then could not get the bottom clean. So I decided that I would take just some white latex paint or acrylic paint and just paint the bottom of the interior of this to begin with. I knew that I was probably going to dry brush the exterior because, again, it's already a white cream, but it is a little dirty. But I like the fact that it was already in a color tone that I would have kept it. Now, once the white paint on the interior is dry, I just took my Mod Podge, I covered the bottom of that, and I had just enough of a piece of, I think it's scrapbook paper that I picked up at Hobby Lobby for, 25 cents or whatever when they go on sale. I had used it for another project, and I had just enough to cut and piece together this on the bottom, just so that, one, it looks clean, and two, it looks finished. I knew it wasn't going to be perfect, but that's certainly fine. This was just really what I was going for, was just to get it clean. So I think that was good enough. And I do like the look of that paper. It is definitely a very good look for the bones of this box already. It's a little bit farmhouse and a little bit industrial. I guess you could go either way with this piece. And then when I was cleaning this, I took a lot of that paint off because it was a chalk paint that was never finished. So I knew I was going to have to, give it a little color. Now, I had some white chalk paint and I had some color that I had mixed up. It was just a linen colored, a little bit of a tan. So I added a little bit together, mixed that up as a custom color to make this not quite so white. I watered that down just a little bit, and then I just took a paper towel and dry brushed, took most of the paint off of that, and then I'm just using a cheap chippy brush. I probably picked up a pack of these for a couple of bucks, and just dry brushed that on. Real simple, nothing fancy. And I painted all four sides, and then I took a small brush and I just detail painted the top edge. Now, the interior had nice deep colors because it didn't have to be as cleaned as the top did, but the colors that were on top were a lot more muted than the inside. But actually, I was intending to keep the box open, so really I am just cleaning and painting and making this look presentable more than I am trying to do a real detailed look to the exterior of this box, because I actually kind of like it the way that it is. But again, even though these nice colors are muted on the exterior, I am going to use the interior. Now, this is a chalk paint, so I did want to put a wax on top of it, and that top is very dry. So I knew that it was going to suck up the wax. So I did that to the entire thing to seal that in and to make that just look a lot better than it did. And then I decided that you really can't see the detail on those pieces of wood on the top. They're actually carved, and some of them have words in them. And so I did decide that I wanted to go back and add a little bit of dark wax to those to pop those a little bit. So that was a little bit darker than I was hoping for, but you can play with that with a little bit more clear and, back and forth. So getting the look that you want really with wax is a matter of, sometimes you mix the two together. You can take a lot of clear wax and a little bit of dark wax, mix them together, and that might give you the look that you're looking for. But I wiped this back real good and then used some clear wax to erase anything I wanted to erase. Of course, then I realized that the top was too dark for the base, so I had to go around with a little bit of antiquing wax and actually distress the whole thing, which I wasn't intending on doing, but actually, for my sake, I actually like it better. I know not everybody does, but I really do like that distressed look. So now this free dump find has been cleaned, the interior has been fixed, the exterior has been given a little bit of a refresh, and altogether I think that it's really a pretty item. And so here it is with those 3 bowls I made a couple of weeks ago in another video, and some of the other items that I have with a pop of blue, and I thought that that really was cute with that lid open. So that was sort of the idea for what I would use as a display for this, but if I do decide to give it away or sell it or whatever in the future, then it at least is clean and nice for somebody who might want to use the exterior with the more muted colors. So that is another very simple, easy thing to do, basically just cleaning an item, refreshing it for as what it was intended to be, not changing it at all. And so that takes me on to the next item. And this is a box that I, again, got for free at my dump. It is just a little wooden crate, and it was, again, painted with a cheap white chalk paint, never sealed. So I wanted to clean that first and foremost. And when I did, the exterior was okay, but the interior really needed a refresh. So I decided to take out this green paint that I already had out and for the sheep picture, and to just give that interior a refresh with that green color because it just wasn't really coming clean. And I have been wanting to do just a little bit more with the colors. My whole house is very, very neutral. I don't do a lot with colors, but I like to add pops of colors here and there in my videos for those of you who do. And then when the interior is finished, I take a detailed brush and just do the very top edge with the detail brush in the green, and then leave the exterior in the white because it looked good. It was pretty clean, and I like the contrast, the interior and exterior being 2 different colors. Now, I had gotten a large pack of floral transfers on Amazon, and I do not remember the name of this, but look at how many sheets you get. They are a little bit more shiny, and you just get, I think that's 5 huge sheets. And I wanted to add some florals to this piece using this transfer. I'll try to remember to link that in the description box in case that's something that you are interested in. And so I cut out the colors that I thought would complement the green, and then I am just going to put them around the outside edges and add a little here and there. This is definitely personal preference, but whatever colors you think look nice, just add that there to go with your style. It's a lot of fun to just be creative. Now, this particular kind of transfer goes on pretty easily, but it is definitely more shiny. So if you don't want the shine, you could sand it, really distressed it, or you could spray it with a clear poly coat that doesn't have any kind of a satin or gloss finish, and that should take some of the shine down. I was very happy that I did not have to paint the exterior the white because therefore I knew that there would be no pulling the paint back, as sometimes happens with a transfer. If you are going to paint your piece first, I highly recommend you wait several days before you add a transfer so that you are not pulling it back, because these particular transfers are very, very sticky. The part that holds the the transfer together, man, it doesn't leave a residue sticky, but it's really weird. It's just really very sticky to peel off. And so I imagine you could, especially if you had chalk paint on here, peel some of that away. And so you had to be a little bit delicate getting that on there, but it was really nice to just kind of roll it back and peel it away. And then once I was sufficiently happy, I only did 3 sides of the box because I assumed the back side would be against the wall. And then I gave the interior a second coat of paint. And then once that whole thing is completely dry, I was ready to display it. And again, I don't have a lot of these kinds of colors in my home, but I did happen to get some live plants recently, so I thought that that actually would help to display this item. So here it is first with some rather neutral things that I did have hanging around, and then here it is with my Easter display that I still have on my dining room table to pick up some of these pretty pops of color. And then inside I added those plants, which just so happened to be in those pinks and purples, so I thought that that altogether looked really, really pretty. So if you are a person especially that likes pops of color, that likes to use transfers, I think that you would be very happy with this particular one. So I want to thank you so much for staying with me through this whole video. If you did stay through, please drop a flower in the comments section, and don't forget to check out the other creators in the playlist that is in my description box, as well as the host channels, so that you can see what wonderful wooden items they created. Thanks so much. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.